Welcome to the Gab Lab, a show where we tinker with titillating topics and explore the effulgent excellence of existence. We cover a wide range of subjects that are sure to intrigue you. So stick around and stay curious.
Gab Lab.
In today's episode, we'll be talking with Kristin Taylor. Kristin is a good friend and associate of mine. I've been working with her for almost 6 months now, and she's just a really fun person. I really enjoyed this conversation. Kristin is an integration practitioner, a microdosing guide, and equine experience creator. She is a single mom of 5 kids and currently resides in Utah. She's the author of Integrate, a 3-month microdosing guide, and her magic is her love for learning, and her passion is based in the essence of wonder, gratitude, and connection. Some favorite plant allies she's currently working with are Blue Lotus, Amanita Muscaria, Rapeh, Ceremonial Cacao, and Holy Basil. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. All right, welcome to the show, Kristin.
Thank you. I am so pumped about this today.
Yeah, me too. Just really excited to have our conversation. Out of like the therapists that I work with, I really like you because you oftentimes, like, I'll go on Instagram and I'll just see you like dancing in your kitchen and like having a good time, and I'm just like, wow, she's really just being herself, and I just love that about you. So yeah, just wanted
Yeah,
to.
usually that dancing is because I'm having some intense feelings. I'm like, we gotta dance this out.
Yeah,
So
isn't it amazing how like our bodies just tell us whenever it's time to move? Like when we got something going on, and it's just like I think about animals and how whenever they like are maybe running from a predator, and they get that jolt of cortisol and adrenaline, and then once the threat is over, they just shake it off and go back to
mhm.
grazing.
Yeah, the whole
Um,
tremor, therapy type thing. Yeah, I've totally even studied that and gotten into where you make your muscles so tired by doing certain poses, you can allow your body to shake it off. Because I've recently, actually, funny you mentioned that, just last week, I had a really, really sad and intense experience and that brought up a lot of sadness. And I was very surprised how my body also was completely, I was just full body tremors while I was crying in a very unique way.
oh wow.
So it was like my whole body was allowing a release that needed to happen from some, just building blocks of events that have been occurring for about 3 years now. And there was a culminating event that happened just a week ago. And
Okay.
so it kind of brought everything full circle. And it was intriguing to witness. I was in it and also recognized and witnessed how my body was reacting. And I was very grateful to witness that my body was free enough to be able to let go in that way.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think that there's something with our society where a lot of times we're disembodied, right? Like we can forget about like taking care of ourselves and nourishing ourselves. And I've found through various practices like yoga and meditation, and also with microdosing and psychedelics, that I have regained more body awareness. Um,
Mm.
and um, One thing that's really powerful, and that's why I kind of just wanted to start with sharing how I appreciate your, like you'll just, post a video of you dancing, and you got, you know, you're honest about it. Like I got some energy I gotta release and get out. Um, I guess like, you know, for the listeners and for my own curiosity, like what kind of practices have you incorporated in your life that allowed you to have more of that body awareness? And do you think that there are um, any microdoses or psychedelics or anything like that that would um, enhance that body awareness?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Absolutely. I grew up being a dancer, so like, I mean, but everyone's a dancer, like, but you know, the typical growing up dancing kind of thing. And then I believe that through these past 2 years, 3 years of extreme allowing myself to let go of what a dancer is where I have fully um, embodied, I love that, embodied the awareness of embodiment in my body. Psychedelics is what allowed me to realize that I would never be home until I made, and yoga, honestly. Yoga and psychedelics both informed me that until I made my body home, I would never feel home. And
Wow.
that happened in a deep journey with psilocybin. And it also happened when I was in yoga in deep meditation, doing a yoga teacher training. And also when I do yoga nidra, when I'm deep into melting into the ground and I'm going from left to right and just kind of going into, you know, a body scan, there's moments where I remember that this body currently is a home for my greater self, my higher self, and all of the essence of me. And my body has stored so many memories. I've got trillions of cells, and if you think of the surface area of every single cell, there's so much that I have within this body to store information, and I believe in that. And so the practices that I have picked up throughout my life have been dance training and also just letting go of that dance training, yoga nidra, the idea of laying on the ground, so nature bathing, wonder and awe practice of also water. I was a swimmer, so
Okay.
sports, but letting go of even any type of this is how you're supposed to do it, and literally like listening. So today I was out on the back porch sitting in the sun and listening to a meditation and breathing with Blue Lotus. So I microdosed Blue Lotus this morning,
Nice.
and heart opening, presence, love. And then another day I may be like, I feel like I've got to run. And so it's listening and trusting your intuition instead of a regimen of I do this every single day, at least for
Right.
me personally.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. There's a lot to unpack there, and I think that I just want to like highlight what you said about um you're never going to feel at home until you feel at home in your body. That's
Mhm.
so powerful because it's like our body is our temple, and like we're stuck with this body whether we like it or not, so we might as well enjoy it and take care of it and nourish it, and have the most positive experience we can in this life. And I've also done yoga nidra, and I was a yoga teacher. And one thing I've noticed with yoga nidra is like there's so many layers to our body and to our being. And it's like the body, the mind, and the body are like the gatekeepers to like the depths within. And I just wanted to ask if you, well, first of all, do you believe in reincarnation and past lives? And do you believe that that energy and memory is stored within our body? Like, do you think we can access things like that?
So I grew up very Orthodox Mormon, and in a way, they believed in past lives, like they believed that we were a spirit before we came here. But after opening up my belief system and thinking outside of the box and thinking for myself, I have come to, yes, I do believe in past lives personally. Um, And I do believe in the ability to access, whether I personally have lived past lives or I'm accessing, let's say, whether it's Akashic records or the just the records of all lifetimes of all people, because I do believe we're all connected. That's still to be, I still haven't like solidified, like I for sure was with Pharaoh and I for sure was with Jesus and I for sure was in this time. But I have had memories unlocked where I have sat, let's say with Jesus, I have sat with the pharaohs. I have felt beyond home in Paraguay, like people of Paraguay, like that was something where my heart is with this people and their customs are South American. So there's certain, and even let's say certain people where I hug them and I'm like, I know you and I don't want to let go. So that leads to me to believe that there's more to life than just this life. And the jury's still out for me personally about, I have not, like, I have met people who've literally seen, I was walking with so-and-so in a past life.
Right.
I haven't had that, like, boom, I've seen this, but I personally, in let's say ayahuasca, have, I have witnessed the unveiling of the genetic, like the reason for me to be married to my second husband, to bring forth 3 children that I have with him. And I witnessed like the generations of generations of his line and my line type thing. So
Yeah.
and when I met him, I felt like I was like I had met someone who I have known many, many, many times.
Yeah. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. I actually feel very similarly, where I haven't really had like a direct like vision or memory of a past life, but I will feel very familiar. Like I even feel that with you, actually. I feel like, oh, this is Soul Family. Like I was
Yep.
just telling my wife like how excited I was to interview you, because I was like, Kristen's awesome. She feels like Soul Family. And my wife, she feels like I've had thousands of relationships in different forms, like mother, son, mother, son, daughter, lover, all the different variations of like entanglement.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I went to India when I was 21, and it felt like a pilgrimage going home. And there was just, yeah, so I get that, but for whatever reason in this incarnation I've been kind of blinded to that. Like maybe that's not the important thing for me here. Maybe it's to like really integrate all of it.
Yeah.
But we'll just keep speculating.
Right.
um
It's fun to speculate. And I think sometimes, though, it's important also to like put that away, because I've learned that I get caught up in the fun of the speculation instead of being present and like
right.
live this life. And
Right.
because sometimes it also can be very helpful when things get really, really hard to be like, I can pull from that strength from previous life and know that there are others, maybe like you or like my friend Stephanie Miller or Julia Frankel, who are other mycology, psychology practitioners, or my own brothers who possibly chose to be in this lifetime to aid me personally, or I chose to aid them. Like this karmic alignment of people being pulled together for the highest good of all. So there's these moments where there's a reason I personally believe, and I choose to believe. Like there's these moments I used to feel like I knew, and now I'm like, nope, but I choose to believe this because I love it and I want to believe this. And that's how I choose to live my life now.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and I love that, because it can also it can get into almost like a spiritual bypassing thing where, it's like you make an excuse because you're, from the Sirius star system or something like that, or like, oh, forgive me, I used to, and it's really like, I mean, whatever happened, and we can even say like with childhood trauma and things like that, it's like, yeah, things happen, but like until we stop victimizing ourselves, like, yes, we need to hold space for like the wounds and the healing process, but until we stop like victimizing ourselves, we actually can't really like move forward in the process of integrating, and like if we want to change or evolve, taking responsibility for that.
I
um
love that. I have like the wickedest patterns of like even my marriages were the exact same amount of years. My kids were the exact ages for both divorces. And now I'm witnessing that the father of my newest family will be taken from the kids for a long period of time, which was similar to the first marriage. And I had a dear friend, she goes, so what are you going to do with it this time? And it was literally that the first time I was such a victim. And I was like so caught up in I am just, oh, it was all done to me. And this time it was like, I don't want the father wound to be so strong.
mm,
Like taking
mhm.
in this, like, I don't want to be the victim. I
Yeah,
desire to co-collaborate. I'm grateful. I witnessed these patterns and it's like second chance. Okay, what are we gonna do this time?
yeah.
And I believe that microdosing, I I believe it's definitely helped me with that. I even had a morning where I was really angry. I went and sat in this closet downstairs and I sit down and I look up and there's literally a box that says old patterns on it. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, oh.
Oh my God.
But it was like signs of the
Wow.
universe. I was like, okay, fine,
Yeah.
breathe. Okay, let's go. We can do this. Like,
That's a
it was
that-
awesome though.
that's a strong wink from the universe. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Oh man.
My
Yeah, I mean
mom and
it's
my
like
grandma sew, and so it was like the patterns were sewing, but it literally
right.
said old patterns, and I was like,
Right.
great.
That's like perfect. Oh man, I mean it's really like, lessons are cyclical, and they're like life is a spiral, right? And so we'll get the same lessons like over and over again in different iterations. And it's kind of like, hey, have you learned this yet? Like, and I always feel like what I've been, I like to like visualize things. So I feel like, it's almost like, you're going around and around and around, and you're kind of like, stuck in the toilet bowl, right? And it's like it's just like two-dimensional. Like there's a spiral, like two-dimensional. And I feel like whenever we evolve, it's like we're stepping off of that timeline and we're like able to like ascend, and to the point where it's like, okay, I get the lesson. And maybe it's just like I'll get like a little reminder, like, hey, do you remember that teaching? And it's like, okay. And instead of like this whole situation where it's like you're going through this whole trial again. But that's just my experience. But I'm curious about your practice with microdosing. You also wrote a book on it, or was it you co-authored, or you wrote a book by yourself?
It's a guide. It's a 3-month microdosing guide. So people can literally just purchase it and use that to help them if they're doing it on their own. It helps save my clients about 3 sessions.
Yeah,
And I was so tired of like telling them the same information over and over. So I was just like, buy the journal. Okay, now we can
right,
work. So
right. That's
yeah.
cool. Yeah, I did a similar thing with Amanita, where I just have a link because people would do a consultation with me, and I'm like, I literally have repeated this information like, you know, hundreds or thousands of times. Like I just go do that. So where can people get the book or get the guide?
Well, if they want slow delivery, they can go to lulu.com. But if they want really fast delivery, they can go to Amazon or Barnes and Nobles. But it's all online. You
Okay.
can purchase on any online bookstore.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
post the link in the show notes. Um, that's super cool. So, you were talking about the other morning, I believe you had a Blue Lotus ceremony. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, could you describe that a little bit? Your
Yeah.
experience
So
and
I
what?
do group live ceremonies or even virtual if there's a group of people that want to experience Blue Lotus. And um, in a way, I channel Blue Lotus, the energy of Blue Lotus, and we work with it, setting intentions. I have felt that Blue Lotus is very, very connected to abundance, to the sacral chakra, the throat chakra, and third eye chakra. I love to look at Blue Lotus almost like Isis, connected to the goddess Isis. Almost every hieroglyph of the gods or pharaohs in Egypt have Blue Lotus drawn somewhere along with their pharaohs and their gods. So it's a very spiritual plant, and it has two active ingredients, apomorphine and nuciferin. And apomorphine works a lot like, it works as a mood uplifter, and it also aids in feeling very present. Blue Lotus also helps with opening the third eye and lucid dreaming. It can, at least. And for some clients, it acts as an aphrodisiac and it can help clients in reconnecting to their sexual abilities. So almost like the natural, whatever that blue pill is that men take, I was like, oh, finally, there's a medicine for women and men. And it also, I actually was looking at Blue Lotus for me for epilepsy. So anti-inflammatory, helps with convulsions. But as always, I recommend everyone looks up all the side effects, all the cautions, all the,
Right.
supposedly it's not for consumption.
Right.
And
Yeah, I just saw
it's
that. I was
like
like, okay.
Amanita Muscaria. Yeah. And
Yep.
so you got to look up all the side effects, everything. And you can purchase it in tea form, tincture, and some people will smoke it. But what I do with the ceremony is everyone will set their own intentions. There's a playlist that I send everybody. It'll be very intentional. So whoever signs up, I fill into the energy of the people, and I'll send them the music to be played. They will brew their own tea, and I will teach them how to use Blue Lotus in a ceremonial way. And I found that I now offer for couples an online or virtual tea ceremony, or individuals as well.
Oh, super cool. And so what is the what kind of dosages are you using or are you recommending for people for the Blue
So
Lotus?
dosage is a bit difficult. I love to recommend for the first time, it sounds silly, but one flower.
Yeah.
The one that I am able to purchase them like whole flowers, and so
Okay,
I'll
with
just
the
tell
little
them, yeah,
kernel in
it's
the
like,
center.
yeah, it's got everything. It's like this gorgeous dried whole flowers. But if you
Yeah.
can't purchase a whole flower, then I recommend a teaspoon of the dried flower, or
Yeah,
the
just
tea.
like kind of like a big pinch.
Mhm.
That's
And then
that's what I've been
you'll brew it
doing.
for 10 minutes, allow it to sit for 10 minutes. And then always, like, I love to always, whether it's a prayer or an intention, like literally tell this Blue Lotus, I am intending to work with you in a spiritual way, in a connecting, collaborating way.
Yeah.
I desire for you to become part with me and connect to my cells and my essence, my energy, and for my highest good and the highest good of all that I serve, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Um, the tincture, I'm pretty careful with the tinctures because everybody is very unique in how sensitive they are. So I always start people low and ask them to take maybe 1 to 2 drops. And I love for people to try it during the day. They think it's just for nighttime. I love, love, love using the tincture during the day.
Yeah. That's
And
interesting. So
yeah.
it doesn't make people sleepy during the
It does
day.
not make me personally sleepy at all. And I find
Yeah.
myself very present, very happy. I'm like, oh, this kind of like, it's very similar to microdosing psilocybin, honestly, where I'm like, oh, I love this song. I forgot how much I love this song. And so it enhances like everything. I find myself swaying and dancing more. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, and I get more things done in a way, but and maybe I haven't asked the men what they're inspired to do. So I don't know on a masculine side, but I find that my feminine side is very much more brought to light. So I find myself being inspired to take care of my body more. And yeah, just divinely, I held a Blue Lotus ceremony one night. I was having a hard time being ready to commit to my kitchery cleanse. The next day, boom, I was like, I'm ready to do kitchery cleanse. And I did it for like 11 days and I was fine.
Okay.
I just couldn't like commit to that kitchery cleanse, and I do a Blue Lotus. I'd even set an intention for that. I sang an intention for abundance and for wellness, and then boom, the next day I'm like ready for kitchery cleanse, and I just started.
Wow. Well, maybe it's like that cleanse, you're feeling a blockage for maybe for abundance, and that cleanse was the thing to like clear the pathway. And maybe Blue Lotus was like, okay, let's start there because that's the path to abundance or something like that.
Yeah. And it was unique too, because that night I get home, I held the ceremony with a few women. I get home and I have this check with like a gold stamp on it, which from in the mail, which you never get. Like and it was from insurance, like medical insurance. It was for $114, which was one of my special numbers. It's
Okay.
one of my angel numbers. It was a reimbursement from medical. I was like, thank you, Blue Lotus.
Wow. Like a
I
check
mean,
from
I
Willy
loved it.
Wonka.
I was just like, this is so rad. You can't make this up.
Yeah.
And and I also loved that I was called the Blue Lotus. I ordered the Blue Lotus before I knew I was meant to. And I didn't know how much I ordered a kilogram, not realizing, but it was before I knew I was meant to. I had a dream about Blue Lotus, but I didn't know it was before I was meant to hold ceremonies as a group with people. So when I suddenly was like, I'm supposed to hold ceremonies with people, I already had all this Blue Lotus and I was ready. So it was
Wow.
already all there for me.
That is so amazing because it actually really reminds me of how my wife started working with cacao.
Um,
She accidentally ordered something, probably a kilogram of cacao. I think it was nibs,
oh,
maybe. And she had just wanted to start working with it in a little bit. And you haven't met her or talked with her, but she has been working with cacao in a very ceremonial way for as long as I've met her. And has deepened that. But it was by an accident of purchasing a large amount, and then she was like, "Well, what am I going to do with this?" So she started incorporating her cacao in her life, like all over the place, So it's interesting how spirit works through, weaves through synchronicities, and I always say like, there's two things in life: blessings and blessings in disguise. And if you don't think it's a blessing yet, then maybe we don't understand the greater purpose to it. And that's my story. I know that that's not everyone's story, but yeah, that's really wild. I think something that's interesting about Blue Lotus is that it's so simultaneously like grounding and like getting you in touch with your body, but also like opening up your third eye and your crown chakra. I don't really I don't really get that a whole lot with some things are more grounding, some things are more uplifting, and some things are more balancing, but I just find that that's pretty interesting with Blue Lotus activating like the sacral chakra. It certainly can be an aphrodisiac. It to me it does feel more feminine, but it does feel like it's activating my sexual centers, but it's not like overwhelming. Like something like maca or Japanese knotweed, or cordyceps that feels very yang, like very masculine, a lot of fire. And Blue Lotus is just more like dreamy and sensual. Would you agree with that?
totally agree. It's like a gentle nudge, like,
Yeah.
hey, we're here, and
Right.
you can play if you want, but you don't need to. Like it's just an embodiment of soulfulness, of passion, and yeah, literally embodiment. So you can choose to leap in, or you can choose to use that energy for something else, like creativity,
Right.
flow, because the sacral chakra is not just about sexual pleasure, it's, I mean, that's literally the center for creation.
Right.
And it's not just creation of creating humans, it's the creation of anything that you desire to release. It's interesting, I just had a client where, this may sound kooky, but we were doing a meditation and the throat became the birthing canal.
Yeah.
And so then she could release and birth out of her mouth what needed to be created. And so that connection with throat chakra, with Blue Lotus, and
Mhm.
the sacral chakra was very, very connected. And it's funny because she's a birthing doula, and she's like, well, the throat is very, very similar to the birthing canal, like even the
Yeah.
way that's made up, the muscles, all of that. And so if you can, envision that maybe in meditation, even for women and for men, there's still all of that ability to connect to, let's say, the urethra or the areas where you do have contraction and release. And so recognizing that you're allowing for that opening and releasing and creation, and let's let this out into the world. Let's give the
Yeah.
world what it is that we are meant to bring to the world. And
Absolutely. Yeah. In the
and
same
I
way
believe we've
that,
been shut down in doing
right.
so.
Right. In the same way that like like in a divine relationship, your love is a gift to give to your lover. It's like the creation of your voice and what your truth is, your gift. It's allowing that gift to come out to the world. Um, and there's something interesting too with like, I believe in my studies of yoga that there's actually like a channel from like a direct channel from the sacral chakra to the throat chakra. And so it's interesting that Blue Lotus is like activating both of those. Totally random side note, but like I used to work on a farm where we would butcher chickens, and the male chickens actually have their gonads in their throat.
Huh.
Like they're like,
Huh.
their business is down there, but like their gonads are up in their throat. And I'm like a yoga teacher at the time, and I'm like, dissecting this chicken, and I'm like, well, that's interesting. Their sacral chakra is like aligned
Right,
with their
right
throat.
there. And yeah, that is intriguing. I mean, because, nature mimics what, we are all divinely connected, I personally believe. So it's intriguing to also witness nature and how they are
Yeah.
mimicking what, or not mimicking, but being, how I believe spirit or the universe desires for us to all embody. And so, and roosters, I mean, they are the ones who are like, what,
Right,
making
that's a good point. I didn't
the
even
most
really
noise.
like correlate that. But yeah,
Yeah.
they're really expressing their creativity.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And one thing I wanted to share too is that I really do feel like Blue Lotus helps me tap into my creative potential.
Mm,
And I've been working with it for probably for about 5 months, just drinking the tea like 3 to 5 nights a week.
mm.
And I would just feel inspired to play harmonium and sing. And occasionally I'd, make like an Instagram live and just sing and have people come in and see. But it felt actually really similar to Amanita Muscaria, where like it helps me let go of my inhibitions, and just tap into my creative potential, and like the mental blocks, like letting those down, letting down the barriers, and just tapping into my creative force. um and it sounds like you and your clients have a very similar experience.
Yeah. And it's been fun. I mean, I'll have a client that maybe has been microdosing with psilocybin and um, or I have clients who cannot because of neurodevelopmental reasons, let's say, or health reasons. And they're looking still for something to work with to help them be more present. They've tried so many other things. And I'll list the benefits of Blue Lotus. I'm like, well, it'll help you with sleep. It helps you be more present. It can help you, if you're struggling with connection with partner or with self, inflammation. And then, of course, there's the positive aphrodisiac aspect. They're like, that's pretty much everything that I'm struggling with. And I'm like, great, let's try it out.
Right.
And yeah, so because I have epilepsy, I found that sometimes psilocybin has caused me to have more seizures depending on the strain.
Yeah.
And especially there was one time I was microdosing a certain amount, and I had like 11 of my temporal lobe seizures, not big seizures, but it was increasing my neuroplasticity to the point that it was creating the seizures as well. And that's also how I found you. I found you early on, actually, but I'd never purchased Amanita at the beginning because there's the whole not meant for consumption because you have to put it on there, and I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't take this. And but I found Amanita as one of the alternative sources for me because those with bipolar or epilepsy are not really recommended to use psilocybin.
Right.
And I also still wanted to work with psilocybin, and I did. And currently, I'm also, protecting custody of my kids. I'm in Utah. I'm not in a place where legally it's not allowed. And so I have the pleasure of looking at all of the different ways that I can still partner with beautiful plants that are still psychedelic. If I choose to go clear into the psychedelic, but I'm not choosing to do that personally, I'm still just doing the microdosing, but I get to partner with beautiful spiritual plants that have so much wisdom, that have been used for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, that in a way have almost been starting to speak, like, it's time, it's time, it's time. Amanita Muscaria is one of those. Blue
Yeah.
Lotus is one of those. And then I also personally partner with Rapeh, or some people call it Rapeh, the shamanic snuff, to ground myself and pull into center and clear my chakras in a very quick way. And then the yoga nidra, yoga, nature bathing. But the Blue Lotus has been, literally like, kind of like you with Amanita. It's like Blue Lotus, like, hey, you're meant to be with us. And this is like, you are going to represent Blue Lotus.
Yeah.
And
Isn't it
here we
so
go.
cool whenever that's amazing. Isn't it so cool when you feel like I get the honor of being like the ambassador for and it's also too, it's like I really want to do it justice. Like I want to be like, yeah, with all these plants and mushrooms, there's so much of a story to tell. And then there's also like, the myths and the legends and the things that are just false information. And so like I feel like sometimes I'm like going on my Amanita crusade, and then Amanita is like, hey, chill out. Like it's
Right.
okay. Like it's all unfolding as it should, right? Like yeah, there's some goofballs selling, gummies that have other drugs in them, but like it's also getting me more out there. And I think that like a lot of these plant medicines, I was just reflecting on this morning, how like a lot of these plant medicines kind of leverage our egos to get them further out into the limelight to the people who
Yeah.
really need them.
Yeah.
Um,
I had a client that said, so isn't Blue Lotus just like a flower? And I went, just a flower? And then I was like, Kristin, like, chill out. I,
how
it was
dare
so
you?
bad. It was so bad. And I was like, okay, like, okay, this means you've got to be able to just be like, it is a flower and it's awesome.
Right,
But I literally responded, just a flower. And it was not okay. And
right.
so that's where I realized I got some work to do.
Well, it's like that's a moment when you're like, man, I could really use some Blue Lotus right now.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. It's like Amanita is such like a chill out kind of mushroom, and then whenever I get all bent out of shape about somebody misrepresented it, I'm like, yeah, it's time for a tincture. All right. Like, yeah, it's just funny how these things come up to just kind of like tease our ego a little bit. But you mentioned Rapeh, and I was curious about like when did you start working with Rapeh, and like I know you said it is really good for grounding and clearing your chakras and your energy. Um, you know, where I guess if it's okay, where would you get Rapeh? Because I know that there's some sources, there's a lot of sources for everything, but like, did you have a reputable source that you'd recommend for people? And, how has your practice developed with that?
Yeah, so I get my supply from, I think it's called Shamanic Supply.
Okay,
Um,
yeah,
Undrea from Ancestor Project was the one who recommended that supplier to me.
that's cool because I've
Um,
actually got from them too. Yeah.
okay.
I'm
Yeah.
actually growing my own mapacho, and I'm gonna try to make my own Appalachian rape.
Whoa.
Yeah,
That's brave. Uh,
yeah,
always with the projects going on, Michael.
yeah.
Um, but it started, so one New Year's Eve, I was with a group of people and they're like, let's try rape. And honestly, that was not the right time, but I did try it. And I witnessed that that was not the right time for me to try it out. And I was curious, but for me personally, rape is very personal. And the next time I experienced it was right before ayahuasca ceremony. But I'm grateful that New Year's Eve I tried it, because then I recognized that my soul was preparing myself to not be nervous when I received it before ayahuasca, if that makes sense.
Mm, right,
So I
right.
was prepared. And so I knew not to like suck up my nose when I received it, so I didn't choke and cough and throw up and everything. Um, and then after I started to work with it, but it still was not, I had not ever been trained or taught by anyone how to work with it. And then I had a dear friend who had been working with it for a long time, and she was the one who served it to me and taught me in a way how to call in my spirit guide team, call in my ancestors, call in the spirit of Rapeh, and work with it in a very sacred, sacramental way. So I treat it as a sacrament now. And I call it in as a prayer. I set around me golden light, and it's my own spiritual practice. And then we had a time with Undrea from Ancestor. I don't know his last name, that's so bad, but from the Ancestor Project, that led mycology psychology practitioners in a ceremony, and he led us through the 4 directions and another prayer. And so it's continuously just progressing. I love, love, love to do rape in a salt bath, where I
Mm,
love to work with water. I love to work with fire. I love to work with the land. So I'll call in also elements while I do it. And I love to use it to clear myself after I've held ceremony for people. So I've found that I tend to sometimes get seizures post ceremony when I hold space for people. And I
mhm.
have recognized now that it was due to me not clearing myself correctly, or there's no correct way, but like Rapeh is one of the greatest tools I have found that has helped me just completely be cleared. And that's also with a salt bath. And
Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense too with the salt.
yeah.
Because that's something that you would avoid during the dieta. And then I did a IO ceremony one time, and afterwards we all took a pinch of salt.
Mm,
And their explanation, I believe, was to um close ourselves off, like guard ourselves spiritually after we had just like done this whole ceremony and opened up. And I know that there's a lot of different traditions and beliefs around salt, but is that similar to what you're talking about with the salt bath?
Yeah, so I also have been attuned to Reiki Master, and when I've done levels 1 and 2 at Mount Shasta, and then I went back to Mount Shasta for a Reiki Master attunement. It could be a Reiki Master teacher thing, but honestly, I don't even remember how to do that. It was mainly for myself and to be able to serve people with Reiki. Um, and one of the things was clearing with water immediately after you serve people with cold water. And so if I don't have water handy, I will touch ground. And I'll do a prayer. And whether or not I know if that's true or not, I'm just like, I'm just going to follow that. But I have held space for people serve DMT. Um, and that night I had about 4 seizures that night, but I didn't clear myself completely.
Wow.
And it was a very powerful, beautiful DMT ceremony for these 2 people, where a lot came forward. Or I've held ceremony for a dancing ceremony, literally like microdosing, 5 rhythms, where I was and a co-host with my dear friend, and beautiful, beautiful ceremony. I go home and I am like sick for 2 days. And
Oh my
so like,
gosh.
no,
Yeah.
not seizures, but like I'm so dead and I can't do anything. And then the next time I did these ceremonies, it's called Rhythm of Love. I did it a few times, and the next time I cleared with Rapeh. I do this salt bath, and the next day I was just fine. And I was like,
Amazing.
okay, here we go. Like, let's,
Yeah.
there's something to the calling upon plants as your allies and using the elements as your allies, and also recognizing that I'm not the person that's providing all this. I'm just a vessel, but also this vessel must be cared for afterwards, because these trillions of cells, as we mentioned, with all that surface area, has been this conduit, and now it must be replenished and also released in a way.
Yeah. And I think that maybe lends to your practice of like dance and embodying whatever you need to go through. I feel like as an empath and also as a person who works with healing other people, you're not taking on just your energy or the energy of your surroundings. You're taking on other, the people that you're helping heal. And it's the gift and the curse of the empath, right? Because we just like soak up everything, and then we wonder why, I don't have seizures, but like my wife, she's empathic and she occasionally will have seizures. They're stress induced. And if she's around somebody who's like has a lot of erratic energy, or like there's a lot of stuff going on energetically, that she can have, some seizures. And so it's so important to ground and clear our energy. And it's almost like the people that have seizures and sensitivities, it's like you're the canary in the coal mine. Do you ever feel
Mm.
like that? Like you're like the litmus test for like, there's some stuff going on here.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we
even
need.
my human design says that. It says when you go into a room, you until you learn that your energy is actually not your energy in a room, um, you will constantly be soaking in everyone's energy. And
Okay.
so, and I mean, I just like learned about human design a year ago.
What's
So
your what is your thing? Are you
I'm a
projector?
generator 1/5.
Okay, yeah. I don't really know a whole lot about it. I'm a generator 2/6 or something like, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I don't know too much about it.
And so I have to read over it a lot. I mean, there's so much in it that you're always just like, huh? But that one stuck with me because it was like, and that also has to do with my centers that are open and which ones are closed. And, 1/4, not 1/5. 1/5 is
Okay.
my son.
Gotcha.
Um,
Yeah.
and so, the generator part, like I got brought back to you again, the Muscaria, because the generator will be like, ping, I'm supposed to have that. And then it comes back again anyway until I will, I'll take it in, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. With the Blue Lotus, like if that's what's really cool about a generator, is you just hear something and you get drawn to it. And if you don't act on it, then it will cycle back and you'll
Right.
it's supposed to come into your life if it's supposed to come into your life.
Yeah, that's why I feel like I'm always like getting hit in the head with lessons. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, you didn't get it this time. Here it is again. Like here it is
Yeah.
again, dude. But luckily,
Yeah.
like as a generator, I mean, yeah, we can burn out, but I just feel like I'm a powerhouse. Like I have so much energy most of the time, and like I'm always doing extra things. I'm like,
Mm.
okay, cool. Like I'm done with this. Time to start a new project. But I got to learn
Yeah.
to like, focus and narrow, but I'm just having fun with it all. So, but I'm curious, you mentioned Amanita, and just wanted to, like I love Amanita. She's my jam. And so I got to ask you, like, how did you find Amanita, and what has your experience been with Amanita Muscaria?
Well, at the beginning, I was looking up alternative ways to help epilepsy. And I was looking for, um, it literally was listed to help with convulsions, I believe. And I found Amanita Muscaria. And then I found your website and I read through it and I almost ordered and then I didn't. That would be I don't know what it is in me. And then I was with mycology psychology, and they mentioned we're going to start working with Amanita muscaria, and I was like, I've already been like really being pulled to this, so it was just like I'm in because I already kind of like the Rapeh being prepared, and then it's like I'm in because I've been prepared.
Yeah.
It's there. I already know I'm meant to work with it. Thank you. I just need somebody else to like say, yeah, it's good. We're good. And so instantly I purchased the 1,4 tincture, the red Amanita, and right when I start working with her, of course, then I find like I've got tablecloths with Amanita on it, and my daughter's picnic set has. I mean, it's like all over the place. I'm like, what? You don't even notice it until you know that they're all there already.
Yeah.
And
And
the
you see
first
red
week,
mushrooms everywhere. Like,
everywhere, yeah,
if you could see this.
there you go, yeah, and so then I start working with her, and the first week, just 5 drops in the morning, every morning for 5 days, and every day I cried, and I
Mm,
and I would cry a lot, but it was without shame,
mm,
and it wasn't. So I've had some mega cries that are like full bodied, like I mentioned that just recently happened last week. This was more like a rainstorm, kind of like those really amazing rainstorms that there's not thunder or lightning, but it's just this gentle rain that you could run out into and play in if you want to.
yeah.
That's the kind of tears that were happening. And then afterwards, I'd just be like, I feel so good.
That's such a beautiful visual. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. It's like I feel the same way. I felt inspired to write something last year, and it was like, Amanita shows us that the tears don't have to burn, right? Like that
Mm.
feeling with the tears are burning our skin or our eyes. It's like and it's not even like you're ignoring it's not ignoring emotions. It's allowing them to come out without the visceral pain or the visceral response that comes with it. Would you
Mhm.
agree with that?
Yeah, there was a complete softening, and a memory would come up. Sometimes a lot of maybe childhood memories or something, and I'd be like, I feel sad. And then, boom, and then the tears, a good cry that just like feels so good. And normally that doesn't feel so good, but it did. And it's almost like it would pick a time where I could cry, which sounds silly. But now that I look back, like I had the time to cry. So it
Yeah,
wasn't like inconvenient, like I'm at the grocery store talking to a lady and a memory comes up and I'm about to lose it. It
right.
was like all my kids are occupied and I'm sitting outside and all of a sudden a memory comes up and I get to have a good cry.
Amazing.
Now
Yeah,
that I think about it, because
yeah.
I got to have good cries. It wasn't awkward or, because like yesterday I almost started crying in front of the grocer or whatever you call it. That sounds weird. the person that rings
The
you up
checkout
at
person
the
or something.
grocery. Yeah. And I was like, I can hold this until I get somewhere else. And yeah. And there was a lot of playfulness and I just felt very connected to my inner child.
Yeah.
Then it seems like some of the work started happening where it was like, let's get all this up and out and gentleness and then there were times where it would be more work. Some of my dreams started coming where I'd process some things that were more difficult, but it was okay.
Hmm.
But I fell in love with Amanita immediately.
That's amazing. Yeah. I feel like, you're talking about your experience at the grocery store and how you don't have to just like start bawling right there. And I agree with that with Amanita. I feel like it's almost like we're gonna deal with this in a convenient and appropriate way and allow you to really feel it when you feel it, but it's not going to be so painful. And something that I personally don't really like with psilocybin is like it's almost like and it is good it's good medicine for whenever it's good, but it's like in your face, like, hey, this thing is going on and um you're going to deal with it. Or like it's coming up right now. Like and sometimes that's just like maybe I took more than a microdose, right?
Yeah, probably it.
I'm extremely sensitive. Like my microdose of psilocybin is like a tenth or like a hundredth of a gram, like very, very small amount, or some people it's like a quarter of a gram. But uh and it's yeah, so I guess if you had any comments on that with like Amanita versus psilocybin, or like if you wanted to share anything about that, that'd be interesting for the listeners because a lot of people are familiar with psilocybin, and a lot of times we feel like that is like the microdose, right? And there's all these other things like Blue Lotus, Tulsi, Rapeh, Cacao, Amanita, all these different plant medicines that we can utilize on a daily basis. So, I guess that was a lot to say, but how would you compare like psilocybin for people, and like do you think that psilocybin is right for everybody?
Well, obviously psilocybin's not right for everyone because I've got clients who are bipolar that it could send them into manic. Um, Even a microdose. So when the body recognizes that certain, it reaches certain receptors that will create this high and get them into a manic phase and maybe get them stuck for a while. Um, Especially if they've done a deep dose and been manic with it, then it might not be the right one. Or there could be certain strains that it could work with. I believe that people will know what feels like home, and I love working with things that feel like home, and also recognizing that there may be lulls in the progress and sticking with it still. So there, like with Amanita, I just had a client yesterday and he was like, I'm not feeling like what I felt at the beginning. I was like, well, what did you feel at the beginning? He was like, well, I was feeling much more peaceful. He has a lot of anxiety and a lot of catastrophizing. So I was feeling more peaceful. I was journaling. I was feeling more connected to partner. But now I'm not feeling it as much. And so I was like, okay, well, what's your dosage? And did you take your breaks in between so you're not building up tolerance? And so we agreed to try a little bit more drops to see if that will aid him and also increase, his practices of the journaling because he dropped that off again. So
Okay.
there's other things that go along with it. The psilocybin part, I do see that the aids definitely in witnessing patterns. The dendrite growth has been, scientifically proven. So you get people that are really into the science of things, and so it could even be a placebo effect that helps them believe that, well, this is going to work for me. Well, then it's going to work for them.
Right.
Um, but I've been in DMT and it is not home for me. And supposedly that can help, supposedly that can help me with my cerebral neuroplasticity and all the things. While I'm in DMT and coming out of it, I'm like, well, what is my medicine? And Amanita comes to mind,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, Amanita feels like home for me personally. Amanita uses different receptors as well. Then I'm having dreams about Blue Lotus, and I feel called to work with Blue Lotus. So the learning of trusting of gut. So there may be a time where psilocybin is your medicine and you're
Right.
meant to work with it, but it may not be your medicine forever. And
Right.
then so it's learning how to, just like me with the dancing or the yoga or the whatever, learning to just pull from your, I call it the cornucopia. I have this cornucopia of tools that I'm just like,
Yes.
what will I use today? What am I being called to today? And there are certain protocols where it is very beneficial to stick it out for a good 3 months and try it out and see how you feel for a good 3 month protocol, like even with Amanita or with Blue Lotus or with psilocybin, to see, with that building effect and that if it's aiding you and partnering spiritually and physically and mentally with this beautiful awake plant that Mother Earth has given us, to see, with a long-term commitment. Sometimes we don't commit to much other than partnership sometimes, and sometimes not even that. Maybe we
Right.
can commit to a plant for 3 months and see how that goes.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I think that that's so helpful for people. And, as we start to close up our conversation, I wanted to ask, like, how would you advise somebody to get in touch with their intuition?
That's
I
such
think,
a good question.
yeah, I know we might need a little more time
Right?
for that.
Well, I use my body. That's one of the ways. I find that if I'm leaning forward towards something, then it is for me. If I find myself like dreading it or feeling like I'm not that excited about it, then it's not for me.
Hmm.
Um, Granted, then people are like, well, I'm not excited to go exercise, but it's for me. But
Right.
in like initial reaction, the immediate first thought, usually like even when you're trained for testing, like that first initial thought is usually your right answer,
Right.
that kind of thing. And and then yeah, I'll go into just like heart space, and sometimes I don't know my intuition, and sometimes I just go, I really don't know, and I try it out, and I usually learn my lesson. I'm one of those who's like, I learn my lessons through experience. If
Yeah.
you follow my timeline, you would know.
Yep.
And trusting though that I still have my guides and my higher self that will truly like bring me back into, I can't jump off my timeline that far that I'm going to mess up that bad that I'm going to be screwed forever.
Right.
At
Right.
least
That's
that's
the
what I trust. As the horse like out there just goes "Wah," and like yells. So maybe I'm wrong, but
yeah.
if I'm leaning into like if I'm truly trying to live a life from my heart and trying to live a life for my highest good and to serve others and do my very best to be a good human, then I don't believe that I'm really going to F up that bad.
Yeah.
And I may get hurt sometimes for sure.
Yeah.
And also, I will learn from that hurt and I will get back up and I will keep loving.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, I really appreciate your grounded wisdom and your playfulness. And just, yeah, thank you for having this conversation with me. And is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners before we wrap it up?
Well, I get this question a lot. What has the medicine taught me? And personally, every single time I've been deep, deep, deep in medicine, it's literally just been be you and you can like, trust the process. And it's
Yeah.
really annoying and it's so simple. And sometimes I fight against it like no other. And then I get the same message again. So
Yeah.
be you, like find out who you are, do what you love to do, and things will continue to, work out for you. You're not alone.
Yeah. Amazing. Oftentimes the greatest lessons in life are so simple, but for us to grasp it, it's not easy. So
Yeah,
that's where the trust and the surrender comes in, right?
absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, Kristin. Really appreciate you coming on. This has been a really great conversation, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you so much, Michael. Have a beautiful day.
Thanks for enjoying another episode of the Gab Lab. If you made it this far, please like and subscribe, share it with your friends, leave us a 5-star review. It all helps the algorithm. If you want to follow us on Instagram, it's gablab.show. And there are other links in the show notes. Please follow the guest, and we will see you in the next episode.
Gab Lab.